France joining Britain, Canada, Australia, and Portugal in formally recognizing a Palestinian state. The move comes as Israel pressures on with its campaign in Gaza as pressure builds for a two-state solution. French President Emmanuel Macron, you see there, called recognition the only solution to bring peace between Israelis and Palestinians. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowing there will be no Palestinian state. Meanwhile, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, in a taped speech to the United Nations, insisted that Hamas will have no role in the future of Gaza and called on the terrorist group to surrender their weapons.
With more on that, plus protests in Italy demanding an end to the Israel-Gaza conflict, we go to our foreign correspondent, Amy Kellogg, who joins us live from Milan. Good morning, Amy.
Good morning. Live from Milan, where I'm watching all of this. It really is quite an incredible week. And the reactions to the recognition of a Palestinian state have been really mixed. As you pointed out, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been very negative. President Trump has called it a reward for Hamas's behavior. But the the press community has even been mixed. And I think it's interesting to point out that the Financial Times, which is an important newspaper of record, has supported this kind of broad recognition among many countries of a Palestinian state. Meanwhile, the Wall Street Journal, which is also a very important newspaper of record, has called it punishment of Israel. Some are calling it theater, but the fact of the matter is that even if it doesn't have a huge effect on the ground in Gaza, there is some symbolism to this move, and some have suggested that it could be to placate domestic audiences, constituencies where emotions run very high, which we saw here in Italy yesterday. Yesterday, there was a national strike. It was called In Support of Palestine. There were demonstrations in 80 different Italian cities, but only in Milan did it become truly violent when these protesters tried to occupy the central station. They attacked police, throwing fire extinguishers and stones at them. 60 people were injured. The station sustained a lot of damage. It would be like this happening at Grand Central Station in New York, for example. And Italy's leadership, which was on its way to New York for the UN General Assembly, basically just said, look, all of this violence does not help the Palestinian people.
A quick sidebar: if we got a peace deal, which is not, I'm not overly optimistic, is there anything left of a potential Palestinian state?
That is the problem, Dave. Benjamin Netanyahu, Israel's prime minister, has said there won't be anything east of the Jordan River. Of course, the two parts of Palestine that need to be joined up if there is to be a state are the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. And the Gaza Strip is uninhabitable right now. Someone will have to rebuild it. I think the assumption is some of the Gulf Arab states will be forking over the money for that. But certainly that's a long way off because the fighting hasn't ended.
Amy, can you give us some bullet points? What are people watching and waiting for at the General Assembly meeting?
Well, certainly President Trump, who is going to be speaking this morning, a little bit later this morning, and he apparently is going to set out his vision for the world. It has been also suggested that it will be a story about America's new strength around the world, and also it is anticipated that he will lash out at some of the international institutions, i.e., the UN. The United States under President Trump is now out of the World Health Organization and out of the UN Human Rights Council. So I think there's a fair amount of anxiety that the US will pull further support from international organizations like the UN.
How would you describe the state of the UN as it celebrates its 80th birthday?
Well, Dag Hammarskjöld, who was the original head of the UN, said that the organization is not meant to deliver mankind to heaven, but to prevent humanity landing in hell. And I think the fact that we see this rules based international order now seriously eroded, we've got three very hot wars between Ukraine, Gaza, and Sudan going on. There is a lot of questioning about the relevance of the organization. The Pope, our new Pope, Pope Leo, said earlier this year that he feels that it no longer has its convening power. Well, it does have convening power, Dave and Kate. We see that this week. But the question is Can it make a difference? And there is certainly a lot of talk that there is a series of 80th birthday reforms that need to be really looked at and acted on. And a lot of that will also be cost cutting. So, where the corners are cut and how the organization is consolidated to be relevant, to no longer be what some consider a dead man walking, is something people will be watching this week as well.
Really interesting. Amy Kellogg, live from Milan for us. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.